الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. The first questioner today is asking, can an individual with loans be zakat eligible if he has old loans being actively paid off, yet he has some money saved? All right, so having loans that you are paying off does not exclude you from having to pay zakat, nor does it exclude you from being able to receive zakat. A person who does not have enough money to cover his expenses, to cover the expenses of himself and his household and his family. If a person does not have enough income or enough savings to do that, then he becomes zakat eligible. And at the same time a person is zakat eligible, he also may be zakat liable. These two are not exclusive of each other. A person may have the obligation to pay zakat because the amount of savings he has is over the nisab, and at the same time, while he has to pay zakat, he is also eligible to receive zakat because the amount of money he has is not enough to cover his expenses. So yes, there can be a person who is eligible to receive zakat, and at the same time that person, he's also obligated to pay zakat. This can happen. If a person has over the nisab, the minimum amount that a person must have in order for zakat to be obligatory upon him, if he has that amount for 1 year or more than it, then zakat is obligatory upon him. But if the person does not have enough money to take care of himself and his family and his household expenses, then he is eligible to receive zakat. So these two things can happen simultaneously at the same time. So a person may have to pay zakat, and at the same time he is eligible to receive zakat. And the fact that he has loans that are actively being paid off, yet he still has some money saved. So, the question here is not about the loans that are being paid off, nor is the question here about the money that you have saved. The question is, do you have enough money to take care of your expenses? Is it enough? Is the money that you have enough to take care of yourself and your immediate family and your household expenses? If you have enough to take care of that, then you are not zakat eligible. But if you don't have enough to take care of that, then you are zakat eligible. Right? So this is how you determine if a person is zakat eligible or not. If he has enough to take care of his expenses or not. If he doesn't have enough to take care of his expenses, then he's zakat eligible. It's as simple as that. The next question is asking also, would a new Muslim unknowing of the start of Ramadan have to do kaffara if she did not fast the first day? And the same with someone who unknowingly broke her fast by trying food. Alright, if a person accidentally did not fast on the first day of Ramadan because they didn't realize that it was the first day of Ramadan for some reason. Maybe this person does not live in a Muslim community and they're a new Muslim and they didn't realize that today was the first day of Ramadan. If that happens accidentally, and then a person later on realizes that it was the first day of Ramadan and they didn't fast, then in that type of situation, there's no kaffara upon that person, nor is there a sin upon that person, because it was not done intentionally, it was done accidentally. So in that type of situation, what the person has to do is, they still have to make up that day after Ramadan is over. So after Eid, then you would have to make up that one day that you missed, but there is no kaffara, there is no penalty upon you for this mistake. Also for a person who unknowingly broke her fast by trying food. Alright, if you mean by trying food, you tasted food. You just tasted it and you did not swallow it. That does not break the fast. The ulama have mentioned that a person who tries food or just tastes it without swallowing it, this is something that does not break the fast. Sometimes maybe someone is cooking, there's a chef, and they're cooking food and they need to make sure they need to see if the food is too salty or if it needs more salt or something like that. So they try it a little bit just to see the taste, but they don't swallow it, they spit it out. This does not break the fast. This is something that does not break the fast, but of course it's better to avoid this if you can. If someone is in a profession where they're making food and they need to try it, without swallowing it, then it doesn't break the fast. But if there's no need to do this, then obviously it's better to avoid such a thing. But trying the food just like that without swallowing it, it does not break the fast. But if a person ate food, swallowed it actually, while they were fasting in the month of Ramadan, if a person did this out of forgetfulness that they were fasting, right? If a person forgot that they were fasting and they ate or they drank, and then later on they remembered, oh, I was fasting, but I ate this meal or I drank this cup of juice or this glass of water, and they realized it after they had already done it, then they continue fasting. Your fast is still valid. That does not break the fast if somebody did that out of forgetfulness. But if somebody did it knowingly and intentionally, they ate food and they swallowed it while they were fasting and they didn't forget and they knew that they were fasting and they did that, then of course that invalidates that person's fast. And this person should repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this person would have to make up that fast after the month of Ramadan is over. Next questioner is asking, I want to marry a guy, but I want to put it in my contract that he can't take another wife while he's married to me. He's saying that he thinks it's haram to say that because it's a right given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have multiple wives. He said that in his madhab he believes it to be haram to sign a contract that says that. However, I am adamant about putting it in my contract. What is the correct view on this? Is it really haram to say that you can't take another wife while married to me on my contract? Alright, so the ulama have mentioned that if a woman wants to stipulate in her marriage contract that she will not be a co-wife to anyone else, then she has the right to stipulate that contract. She is not making it haram for him to marry another wife. She's not making it haram for him. Allah has made that halal. So if he still marries another wife, while she has stipulated that contract that she will not be a co-wife with anyone else, if he still goes ahead and marries another wife after agreeing to that condition, then she has the right to have the marriage annulled in that type of a situation. She has the right to have the marriage annulled. So she's not making what Allah has made halal haram. Rather, she is stipulating on herself, she is stipulating on her husband that she herself has the right to leave this marriage if he goes ahead and marries a second wife. So this is permissible. She can make this condition. She is allowed to make this condition. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Muslimuna ala shurutihim, that Muslims are bound according to their conditions. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna ahaqqa ash-shuruti an tufu bihi mastahlaltum bihi al-furuj, that the conditions that you have the greatest obligation to fulfill are those conditions by which you have made halal intimate relations with your spouse. Those are the most important conditions that you should fulfill. So when a woman makes this type of a condition, she is not making it haram upon the man to marry another wife, because she can't do that, but she is giving herself the option to leave this marriage if he goes ahead and takes another wife. And she has the right to do this. So in this type of situation, if she made this condition and he agreed to this condition, then later on he decides that he wants to have a second wife. This is halal for him. He can take a second wife, but then now the ball is in her court. Now she has the right, the first wife has the right to have the marriage annulled based on that condition that she made. She has the right to have the marriage annulled. Or if she chooses, she has the right to stay in the marriage if she wants to. She doesn't have to exercise her right to have the marriage annulled if she doesn't want to. So at that point, if he does decide to take a second wife, then the ball is in her court. She can either have the marriage annulled based on her condition, or she can remain patient and stay in the marriage. It's up to her in this type of situation. So that's how that type of a condition works. It's not making the halal haram, because you're not making it haram upon that man to marry a second wife, but you're giving yourself the right to have the marriage annulled if he goes ahead and takes a second wife, right? So that's how that type of condition works, and that type of condition, it is permissible for a woman to make that type of condition in her marriage contract. The next questioner is asking, is holding the translation of the Quran during the Taraweeh prayer permissible for those who don't understand the Quran? So by holding the translation and following the recitation, it brings more khushu'. Alright, now in general, it is makruh to have something in your hand, to hold something in your hand and to read something while you are praying the prayer, while you are in salah. What is encouraged and recommended and prescribed is that a person, when he is praying behind an imam, he should attentively listen to the recitation of the Quran. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنِ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. When the Quran is recited, then listen to it attentively and be silent so that you may receive mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a person, when he's praying in general, he should listen carefully to the recitation of the Quran and pay close attention to it. Now, if there is a need for him, or if there's a valid reason for him to be holding a mushaf and following along with the translation. For example, a person doesn't understand Arabic, so he's not able to understand what the imam is reciting in this type of situation, then it is permissible for a person to hold a translation of the Quran or an explanation of the Quran and read along while the imam is reciting. This is permissible, and it's not even makruh in this type of situation if it will fulfill the purpose of this person gaining khushu' in his salah. So if this is a means for a person to gain khushu' in the salah, that he's able to understand what the imam is reciting, then in this type of situation, inshallah, there's no harm in him holding a mushaf. Or they even have some new apps. I think there's an app that a brother was telling me about this Ramadan. He showed it to me actually. It's pretty amazing. It's called Tartil, where you don't have to even do anything. You just open the app, and by audio recognition, when the imam is reciting the Quran, and the app, it recognizes the verses that the imam is reciting, and it automatically pulls up those verses that the imam is reciting in real time, and has the explanation or the translation of those verses displayed on the screen. Right, so you can follow along with the imam easily without having to shuffle through your Quran app or anything like that. It's just real time. It hears the recitation of the imam, and it pulls up the translation of those verses that the imam is reciting in real time. So you don't have to really do anything. You're just following along as the imam recites. So that's actually a very useful tool, and it is permissible for a person to use this. Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz rahimahullah was actually asked this question. If it's permissible for a person who doesn't know Arabic behind the imam, when the imam is leading the Taraweeh prayers, to have a translation of the Quran open and follow along. So he said, in general, the general rule is that it's makruh for a person to hold a mushaf behind the imam if there's no need to do so. But if there's a valid reason to do so, like this, like the person praying behind the imam does not understand Arabic, so he's doing this in order to understand what the imam is reciting, in order to gain more concentration and focus in his salah, then in this type of situation it's not makruh anymore, because there's a valid reason and it is something that is allowed, and there's no harm in doing this. So inshallah, there's no problem, there's no harm in doing this. But of course, it would be advisable for the people to try to learn Arabic. That's better than depending on translations, right? If a person can learn Arabic, or at least a basic amount of Arabic, enough of an amount of Arabic to understand what the imam is reciting, then that is something, of course, that is highly encouraged and highly recommended. But in the meantime, make an effort to learn Arabic. But in the meantime, if you can't do that, then using these apps, inshallah, there's no harm in doing that, and it is permissible. The next questioner is asking, I live with my moderate practicing Muslim family, and they have seen my change in life from becoming more practicing. And while they are supportive of me in my journey, I think a lot of the times if I want to do certain deeds for the sake of Allah, they usually stop me or criticize me, saying things like, she's trying to be so pious, etc. And I wanted to know if it is permissible for me to lie, to conceal my good deeds so they don't hinder me from doing so. I don't want to discourage myself, but also the criticism can sometimes bring my iman down. All right. So for a person to criticize someone for trying to practice their religion, this shows that the people who are making this type of criticism, they have a disease in their hearts. You see someone doing something good and you stop them from doing good, or you criticize them for doing good. This is not the characteristic of a Muslim. This is actually from the characteristics of the munafiqeen, of the hypocrites. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the hypocrites, He said, Al-munafiquna wal-munafiqatu ba'duhum min ba'd, ya'muruna bil-munkar وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَنَسِيَهُمْ إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, the male hypocrites and the female hypocrites, they are from one another. And then he mentions their characteristics. يَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمُنْكَرِ, they command people to do evil. وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمَعْرُوفِ, and they stop the people, or they forbid the people from doing good. When they see people doing good, they want to put a stop to people doing good. وَيَقْبِضُونَ أَيْدِيَهُمْ, and they constrict their hands, meaning they don't spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. نَسُوا اللَّهَ فَنَسِيَهُمْ, that these people forgot Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala neglects and abandons them. إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ هُمُ الْفَاسِقُونَ, surely the munafiqun, the hypocrites, they are the rebellious ones. Right? So when a person is trying to do good, a person is trying to obey Allah, and someone who claims to be a Muslim tries to stop them from doing that, or criticizes them from doing that, or discourages them from doing that, then know that that is from the characteristics of the munafiqeen. That is from the characteristics of the hypocrites. Whereas the believers, they do the opposite. They command the good and they forbid the evil. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions about this ummah, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best ummah that has been set forth for mankind. You command the good and you forbid the evil, and you believe in Allah. Right? So the believers command the good and forbid the evil, whereas the hypocrites, they command you to do evil and they forbid you, or they try to stop you from doing good. So what you're mentioning here is that when you want to do certain deeds for the sake of Allah, they usually stop me or criticize me, saying things like, she's trying to be so pious. These people, the actions of these people, stopping you from doing good or criticizing you for doing good, this is from the attitude, from the traits and the characteristics of the munafiqeen. Waliyadu billah. So that's very serious. All right. Now the question is it permissible for me to lie to conceal my good deeds? Okay, don't lie, right? Do your good deeds, but you don't have to tell them that I'm doing this or I'm doing that. You can do it secretly, you can do it privately in order to avoid, the harm from these people. If they try to stop you from doing things, or they criticize you for doing certain good things, do these things out of their view. Don't tell them I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Do it on your own and keep it between yourself and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you don't need to lie about it. But at the same time, you can hide it from them. You don't need to publicize it to them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you firm and keep you strong. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide those people from your family who have this attitude of criticizing your obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make dua for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them. All right, and there are a few more questions because of course we have a build-up of questions from the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So we will continue to answer those questions bi'idhnillah next week. So if you didn't hear your question answered this week, inshallah, we'll try to answer it next week and in the coming weeks bi'idhnillah. We'll stop there for today bi'idhnillah. Jazakumullah khaira wa barakallahu feekum. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.